Um, so the focus for these conversation sessions, and this is the second one that we've done, it's really meant to be a loose, informal gathering space just for people to get together, to hear about what other folks are doing, to share about what you're doing or what you'd like to be doing, to make connections and, to hear about folks in other parts of the state that you might not know about, but who are also doing interesting things. And really just to sort of inspire each other and find out about what's going on and how we can make more of it happen. So that's where I hope that these will continue to go. We're going to be doing them bi-monthly moving forward. I think this one was actually 3 months since the last meeting because yours truly was slow to get it going. So we'll have different folks coming to speak about their projects, what they're doing in towns moving forward. I do want to share where we're at very quickly. We now have about 120 projects that have been supported or that are actively fundraising through the Community Match Fund. There's ballpark $1.6 million that's been invested. That's a mix of crowdfunding and the matching grants from Sustainable CT, just short of 5,000 donors and hundreds of volunteers for these projects. And I think there have been projects in 63 cities and towns around the state. So it's really exciting to see this sort of just spreading out and to find that when one project pops up, other projects then come along as well. It's been a super fun program for me to manage. And it's just been inspiring to see all of the different initiatives that folks like you are taking on. So to all of you who have led projects, thank you for doing that. To all of you who have donated to projects, thank you. And to those of you who have done both, thank you twice. To start things off, I'm going to quickly introduce Joe Lanier, who will talk first about his project. I'll post links into the chat here. So if folks want to follow along and learn a little bit about the project while he's talking, you can. But Joe is a high school teacher in Oxford, Connecticut. He's also on the Conservation Commission and heads up the Youth Conservation Corps. And he'll be talking about his project to build 2 new miles of intermediate multi-purpose trails in town at the Rockhouse Hill Sanctuary. And so part of the reason Joe's talking today, one is just because it's a great project, but 2, he led a wildly successful crowdfunding campaign with some pretty interesting ways of raising money, hybrid crowdfunding, web-based, actually in person. And it's just been great sort of support from the community. So I wanted Joe to talk more about what he's doing, more about the internship program they have and the crowdfunding campaign. Joe, I'll let you take it from here.
Okay, so thank you very much. I appreciate having the opportunity to kind of discuss things. Our program came about with, once we found out about Sustainable Connecticut, obviously I initiated the town to engage. And very quickly after we were finally on board, I was able to develop a project based around the fact that our open space properties have seen a substantial increase in usage during the COVID-19. I guess that is the silver lining here for us, is that we were taking our lemons and trying to make lemonade, so to speak. And we really hit it off. And I have to admit, there's a lot of partners that came to play. And my target audience was a big factor as well. And what we ended up doing is that I was working with another group, Housatonic Valley NIMBA chapter, which is the New England Mountain Bike chapter. I actually utilized them to get out the message on their social media network and throughout their own networks of the mountain biking community. And also I engaged the hikers and runners that are there, because I actually have 0 social media presence just because of being a teacher. So I was reliant on them for that. And that really helped. And when I actually personally spent like probably 5 weekends in a row in the parking lot, passing out flyers, explaining the program. And I think that personal contact, I know it was kind of like the COVID situation is not ideal, but that really formulated some good relationships and contacts where we were able to engage a large crowd. And the one thing about our funding, only 35% of the funding came from people that live in town. 65% of it came from out of towners and out of state people too, because we were actually attracting people from New York State as well into our trails. We've become like the latest place to come and recreate everyone, because everyone was looking for new places because our state parks were so overwhelmed. But I think the really dynamic part, what everyone really liked, is that the 14 miles of trail that we have, 95% of them have been built by the high school students. And that's occurred over the last 12 years. And those students, I've had over 500 volunteers come out, and 200 have qualified for our internship program. And with that, they've donated 15,000 hours of service over those 12 years. The way we actually set it up is that after a student completes 50 hours of service, then they are able to basically get recommended for an internship. We have them volunteer first rather than hiring them first, so to see if they like it. Because if they don't like it, then that makes it kind of tough to be like, oh, I quit the job. So my turnover rate is really low, which is great. And students who only come out once or twice, it's still good because if they're doing honor society or want to just build their resume, other opportunities, it's good that they've, can show they've been involved with the community. And that really helped us with engaging the bigger audience, I think, because people wanted to donate knowing that they were going to actually help a student be able to commit a certain number of hours. Excuse my lights just went off. Let's see if there it goes back on. Classic. But with that, that really helped drive the fundraiser and stuff, and of course the partners, but the students, because the money is going directly to the kids, and that really helped out. And then having the town as our fiduciary agent really helps as well, because since we're using this money to pay students, the payroll factor and all that increases the complexity. They have the infrastructure to deal with that. So I was fortunate to be able to, we had that all kind of set up beforehand. If we didn't, I think that would be challenging initially, but we were fortunate to have that in place. The other thing that drove it was we actually ended up having a double match where I actually had to turn down a benefactor we have here in the local area. He wanted to complete our goal, our initial goal. He wanted to donate $2,700, and I putting calls to Caryn about that, and we were like, oh, I'm not sure. I was hesitant to accept, and I actually had to tell this individual that I think it's more important that we get the numbers of people donating. So we ended up around 124, and then just last month, before last month, this gentleman came back and basically said, okay, I'll match all of the individual donations 1-to-1. So we raised $9,000, and then last month he actually gave us a check for $10,000. So we actually raised over $26,000, much more than we ever anticipated. So it was hard to say no, but I was willing to take that risk, and I think he believed in us. And I said, this project will speak for itself, and it's really important that we have the numbers, because I think that was important. So I'll leave it at that, so people could ask other particular questions, but I want to make sure the other group has plenty of time.
Thanks, Joe. It's always fun to hear about this. And it's always sort of a funny problem to hear when folks say, I actually had to turn somebody down for money right now because they wanted to close this out. Like, that is not what you would typically think you're doing. But I think there is a lot of value to that, right? Where someone says, I want to close this out, but it's more valuable to sort of build those connections with community and to have 125 donors like you got, rather than, sure, you could have one and someone closes that campaign out, but then there's hundreds of other people who haven't heard about what you're doing. They're not involved. They're not engaged. They don't feel ownership of it. So I'm glad to hear that you were able to get the money moving forward as well. But glad to know that the sort of the community engagement was a really crucial factor, and that you wanted to stick with that. So moving on to the next project, we have Caryn Furst and Jenny Henkind, who are two Stamford residents who really just volunteered to initiate, to spearhead, to organize, and now implement their entire project. So this is a really exciting one for us because it's a super hot topic in the state right now. Jenny and Caryn are implementing a food scraps recycling program in the city of Stamford. And there's been lots of talk about this in the state, as they now have I think the Sustainable Materials Management Group. I know I'm getting that acronym wrong, but it's something to that effect. And we've seen, there's a burgeoning waste crisis. And there have been lots of towns that talk about doing food scraps programs where they contract a hauler, recycling programs. I know we've got some folks on them that have done sort of at-home composting programs. But this is an interesting one in that, as far as I know, it's the first time in the state that someone is actually purchasing a machine that will do the composting in-house, and then be able to, it really speeds up the process. And Caryn, Jenny, I know you guys will talk more about that, but we're excited anyways to see how the utilization for this is, how the machine works, and whether this can expand. And I know certainly in Stamford, one fun aspect is that the mayor is so excited about this that he's getting ahead of things and already talking about expanding it to other parts of town. So that's been exciting to see. Guys, I'll let you take it away.
Jenny, do you want to start? I wonder if Jenny here?
Jenny, you're on mute.
Oh, I have to I always forget to unmute myself.
There you go.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jenny Henkind. Caryn is also here, and I'll speak very briefly because Caryn is really the good on the Zoom talker, but I'll just give you some basics. But I was the person that initiated the project because I had friends that lived in Scarsdale, New York, and Scarsdale has a very robust food scrap recycling program down there. So it's a long story of how it all happened, but eventually I said, you know what, there's no reason Stamford, Connecticut can't do something. And so I started thinking about it, and I approached my friend Caryn, who's another citizen in town, and we approached the city and formed a city-public partnership, city citizenship partnership, to create a Stamford food scrap recycling program. We actually started it before COVID, and actually I'll bring my props, hold on.
She has good props.
I always have to bring my props. So we had our little issue, COVID put a little problem, but I'm vaccinated. You all need to get vaccinated. Anyway, so long story short, we were able to sort of get the ball rolling. Then we heard that Sustainable CT had a matching grant program. That's when we got in touch with Abe. We wrote the grant, and things stalled during COVID, and then we sort of rejuvenated. We had some donations, and then a few months ago, we rejuvenated our efforts and figured out how we could navigate through the digital world to make this program work. And here's what I'll say. I never imagined our city and our citizens being so enthusiastic about this program. We originally were trying to raise $7,500. We have now, between donations, grants, and everything else, what's the number now, Caryn? We're over
20 some thousand. Yeah, we're over
over $20,000. It just like exploded. And I'll say, I think a big part of it is because the mission that we have resonates with people, but somehow we got the messaging right, and somehow we let people know the right way. So I just wrote down some of the things that I thought about, but Caryn will elaborate. And by the way, none of this money was from businesses. We haven't even approached businesses yet, and we think that we will get support from businesses in town, and that's sort of going to be our phase 2. The only support we got from businesses was we got some donations for prizes during our opening webinar, which I'll talk about in a second. But I think part of the success of our campaign is that we really used every possible medium known to man to try and reach out, whether it was phone calls to friends, emails, text messages. Social media was a little bit of an issue because we're sort of older folks and not so great with that stuff. But this will bring me to the fact that we got high school students, similar to the other program. Young people are so helpful with all of this. And I'm not going to define young because we don't do that. But younger people are super helpful in the world of social media and producing digital stuff. So it turns out that Stamford, Connecticut has an agri-science program at one of the high schools. So we found 2 students who were willing to work with us, and they produced videos. They set up Twitter. You know, I don't even know what they did, honestly, but they sent a bunch of stuff out. Maybe Caryn knows it all. They sent tons of stuff out on social media. And so we figured not only is that engaging younger people, but younger people bring their families in too. So as we kept casting more and more nets, we kept finding more and more interest. One other factor that I think is really important is to not lock yourself into thinking that you can only sort of advertise or promote yourself to specific groups. Like, we reached out to any kind of environmental group that would have any, that we thought would have any kind of interest, like surf riders, garden clubs, community groups, neighborhood groups, anybody we could think of. And part of what we did was send out emails and contacts and said, listen, even if you don't necessarily support us, if you know people who do, please send them this message. And like, one example of this is we ended up hearing from somebody who, like, it was like a 3rd degree contact, who runs a rock climbing place but had a list of like 300 people they sent our email to. So you never know when you're going to hit that one person that has just this tremendous number of contacts. And I'm sure that some of that bore fruit. So we also used Nextdoor, which I don't know if you guys have Nextdoor in your towns, but I just put up in the Nextdoor and I asked people who I knew in neighborhoods to put up on Nextdoor, and we got a bunch of support from that. So it's really like my theme is open your brain to any kind of contacts with people, because you never know. Let's see. I just want to talk really very briefly about also that we had an opening night webinar. So we promoted the program, but we also organized a webinar where we had the head of City of Stamford recycling and sanitation. We had the mayor. Caryn did a whole presentation. I did a little talk. We kept it brief, and our students did some really amazing and cute and informative videos about the program. And we got tremendous feedback. So in some ways, as much as this stinks, I think actually in reality, it ended up helping us to reach more people than we would have had we just gone to like an event at a park or an event here or a community center. This time of our lives has really opened up unbelievable opportunities for all of us to reach people that we never thought we could. And so if you grasp onto that, it could really, it can take you to places you never thought you could be. So I'm gonna zip it. I'll let Caryn speak.
Well, I don't have much to add, but I will say, I think a few things worked in our favor. The first is, as large as Stamford is, it's also in some ways a small town, and a lot of people know a lot of people, and that worked in our favor. We never dreamed that we would reach our goal by the time before we even did our raffle, which was 4 days after the live stream that we did. People just really opened their wallets to it, and I think they're quite excited. And I've spoken, I live in a part of the city that is really far from where I would have to bring my food scraps to recycle them. And yet a lot of my neighbors got all excited about it as well. And one of the things that I'm personally going to start, I'm going to carpool my food scraps with some of my neighbors so that we don't have to make the 35 minute drive from where we live down to the recycling center to make that happen. I think that's why, I think the mayor lives up near me too, which is probably why he got so excited about wanting to put another facility up north where we are. Nonetheless, the response has been terrific. I do think the raffle was helpful, but not essential, but it certainly enlivened things. And where we are at this point, having raised enough money, we hit our initial goal. Then we increased our goal. We added a stretch goal on patronicity, and we hit that. So we decided to raise our goal yet again. And because of that, we went from originally carting our food scraps to Dan Cololari, our director of sanitation and recycling, saying, why don't we look into buying a food composter, a composting machine, and siting it at our recycling center. Originally, we were going to pay it off over 3 years. Then when we raised the goal, it was to pay it off over 2 years, reduce the cost, but we needed more upfront money. And we have raised enough at this point that we're going to buy the composter outright, which is a really big deal because it opens opportunities for perhaps a second one down the road and a separate location. And that's something that we didn't realize in the beginning, that we could keep raising, even though we don't get matching funds from Sustainable CT, we can continue to fundraise. And that is really kind of fun. Where we're at now is we're planning a launch, and we're working, we added someone to our 4-person committee well, 6 actually, with our 2 high school students. And we were it for a long time, but now we've added another resident who has taken on the task of organizing and leading our volunteers, because we are going to need people down at our recycling center, both for the launch and also to man it for a while, to help people to understand when they get there, what it is that they do, where might they buy additional rolls of compostable bags, et cetera, and where can they buy. I mean, I'm hoping that we'll be able to sell kits on the first day or the first week down in the recycling center. But beyond that, people need to go to 2 places within the city, and we will be selling the kits at cost. The starter kits are a countertop bag bin that's big enough to very comfortably scrape a plate into, and a roll of compostable bags and a small toter. It's 6 gallons, where you can put your filled bags of food into that and then bring that down and dispose of it in special bins at the recycling center. Bins with a big sign. And we are really grateful to the folks at Scarsdale, who were so generous with us to give us a lot of their materials, help us look through some of their vendors, help talk us through how this worked, and so on. So, you know, in some ways we're modeling Scarsdale, and a lot of ways we've just absolutely made this our own. But stay tuned, our launch is in another month. We're really excited. I can't wait to see what happens. And we're getting more silly hats.
Yeah.
Thanks to Jenny.
Yeah. Like at the launch, this is foam hat. We're going to wear like chicken hats and banana hats and all kinds of crazy stuff. So we're going to try and make it fun. But I did want to actually throw in one last thing about sort of the nimbleness of the times that we live in. So for instance, Scarsdale also relies on volunteerism and such to keep their program running. And they had required all volunteers to have training, which we will also, but they had in-person training. They had people going to all various events around the city. But again, because of the limitations and restrictions, but I'll call it also opportunities of our time, we decided that we're going to produce videos with training for the food scrap recycling volunteers. It's not complicated. They just need the information. So we're going to produce a video with instructions for the volunteers. And we're going to have a laminated sheet with all the information for them at the Food Scrap Recycling Center that they can refer to. And then we will also always be available for questions.
Right, and a handout.
Right. And so this is a really important part of our program. And we completely did a 180 on how we were going to have this occur because of the times that we live in. But again, I think ultimately it's going to be easier. We're going to do a video one time, and that can be viewed by one person or it can be viewed by 1,000. It doesn't matter. And the beauty of that also is if other municipalities, places, they're starting programs, share, do, take. It's all about helping each other. That's so right. whatever programs you guys are undertaking, I highly recommend reach out, find out if anybody else in the country is doing similar, because they may have ideas about how they reached out to people, how they made themselves relevant to their communities. It was incredibly helpful to start with Scarsdale as a model. It saved us a tremendous amount of time. Then we were able to morph into the program that we have become. And you will definitely be missing opportunities and information if you don't find other people that have something similar going on in their area.
Agreed.
Well, Caryn, Jenny, Joe, thank you guys for sharing. I have one request for Jenny and Caryn. Can you guys send along the video when you get a chance, or the link to the video where the interns were actually explaining to folks how to do the food scraps recycling?
Oh yeah, you could actually find it. Unfortunately, the city of Stamford is upgrading its website, so our webpage is down with under construction. However, we have a YouTube page that's public. So if somebody wants to search YouTube for Stamford Food Scrap Recycling, it should probably be under something that or something similar to that.
Okay.
And Abe, if you once we hang up, I can find it for you. Yeah, but it's all three. There were 3 videos that the kids did, and Jenny did one on how to use the food scrap that was not used for our live stream, but it will be a link from our webpage, and all of those can be found on one YouTube page with all 4 videos on it.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
if you just wait a week and you just look and you just Google Stamford food scrap recycling, it will bring you to our city page.
Hopefully, yes.
Hopefully,
As soon
once
as,
the city's new website is up.
right. You say a week, I am the whatever, but yes, soon, to be determined.
Soon.
Exactly.
Sure. Hard to pin down an exact date. Okay. Well, so thank you guys again. At this point, I'll open it up to anyone who has, if you have questions about the project, about the fundraising campaign, feel free to unmute and just sort of chime in. Or if you want to share about something that you've done, if you have questions about the community match fund. I mean, the last half hour now, this is intended to be a totally open time to just whatever is useful for you guys on the call. Alicia, it looks like you got a hand up there.
I know. First I clapped and then I got the right hand. Anyway, well, great hearing about both projects. You know, we have plans in the little town of Falls Village to expand our trails and do a food scrap recovery program. We've actually looked into it a little bit, and we ran into some.
Hello, thank you for joining us once again every Tuesday.
Okay, we ran into some cost issues that I'm not sure if they're accurate or not. I was working with our transfer station. So I'm just wondering if it's possible, maybe not now, but to talk to you offline and see about, you know, what you guys did, and yeah, and see if we can, you know, best practice share from you also.
Absolutely. We, you know, I'm trying to think if you can reach out to me. I have all the materials as well. We're happy to share everything. I mean, we were the beneficiaries of Scarsdale, and I'm happy to share with anybody else.
And you're working with your public sanitation department?
Yeah. So, I mean, I could give you I don't know. I mean, I could give you my personal email, or you can go to stanfordfoodscrap@gmail. We have a food scrap.
Yeah, we have a Gmail, Stamford Foods.
Terrible timing to cut out there.
I'll check it.
Okay.
But we are yes, we are working with the city. So, and you know, one interesting thing about that is I thought people would be really like put their noses up at, why am I donating to something when I pay all these taxes, like ridiculous taxes to the city of Stamford? Why am I paying for food scrap recycling? Well, I think people get it. There's only so much money in the pot. And if we do some, and Sustainable CT does some, and the city does some, well, then we can make things happen that we would not ordinarily be able to afford. So that, again, resonated surprisingly well with people. And not once have Caryn or I had a complaint or a question from somebody about, why are we paying for this? So I think a lot of it is in the messaging. But
of course, we were very careful not to, we were to say we were a partnership. I can't remember what the word. We were very careful in choosing our words to explain that we had partnered with the city, and not that we were part of the city. And everything came from us, you know, as the committee, and from residents, and not from members of, you know, of the city itself to raise money. So
I have one more question. So one of the roadblocks we came into was apparently there's some inspection that needs to happen at your transfer station, if that's where your scraps are going to end up. And for our town, which is very, very small, we're, you know, 800 homes, 1,300 people, the cost for the inspection might be the same as what it would be for Stamford. So that was where we got, you know, we stopped moving forward on that program. So I was just wondering if you had any
nobody ever mentioned that. I've never heard about that, so I can't answer. Jenny, did I miss something that you heard?
I don't either, but again, Stamford is what, the second or third largest city in the state of Connecticut,
Right.
Yeah.
Close second. So a lot of those kind of details, the head of sanitation has been dealing with, and he probably is already permitted for certain things and inspected for certain things. So
Yeah.
municipality size necessarily then is going to cause different issues.
Yeah.
Well,
But again, we
I'll
can
talk
try
with
to
you guys
help you.
offline. I'll talk to Abe more
Yes.
about it because it was something that I meant to circle back with Sustainable CT on, because I think that there's going to be some equity issues in regards to small town versus large towns and being able to move forward on some of these programs when there is an inspection fee that could be prohibitive for the smaller towns.
Yes, and FYI, Stamford is not the only town in Connecticut that's doing this. There are other towns, Greenwich, Darien, and they're much smaller than Stamford.
With Darien slower.
Yeah, so we don't,
Smaller, but they have much larger tax bases.
correct. So we don't want to get stuck on a
Yeah,
particular.
yeah,
program.
exactly.
We are happy to help you out.
Okay, that'd be great.
And I
Thank
just put our Gmail address in the chat.
you. Okay, good. Thank you. I got it.
Jenny.
So if other folks have questions, chime in. I'm also curious to hear for those of you, which is many on the call, who have led crowdfunding campaigns, if there's something that either was surprising, that you didn't anticipate being a successful way of raising money, or just ways that were successful, but that were creative. I mean, like, I honestly loved, Joe, hearing about when you first told me that you were out in the parking lot handing flyers out, because typically people think about a crowdfunding campaign and it becomes, the focus becomes virtual, right? People start thinking about, okay, I'm going to send emails, we're going to post on social media, and that's where all the donations are going to come from. And I mean, while that's certainly a great way to connect with lots of people, I think the statistics show, and Cameron, I know you're on the call here somewhere, so correct me if I'm wrong, but something like 1% of people donate who see a social media post, right? It's a great way of getting the word out, but it's not necessarily a great way of actually driving donations. And so it's always fun to hear about that, the traditional fundraising, right? Crowdfunding it's one tool in your belt that makes it very easy for communicating with people, sharing what you're doing. They can donate where they are via credit card, but it's by no means meant to supplant the traditional ways of fundraising, which is picking up the phone and calling somebody, or going out in person. And probably now you're not going to knock on doors, right? But in normal circumstances, knocking on doors, holding a raffle, holding a fundraiser in person, or giving out flyers, right? I think we have a program that's going to launch shortly. That's it's a combination of a bunch of different parks in Hartford. And one of the things that they're all doing to coordinate are biodegradable signs with QR codes that they're putting out at various entranceways into the parks. And so anyone that's walking in will be able to scan that on their phone and go directly to the crowdfunding page. So again, that's a sort of a passive way of engaging people, but another example of that, people exist in the world. And a big part of these fundraising campaigns is actually meeting people where they are out there in person, and those more traditional models. So curious to hear if anybody else has examples of other things that were super successful or that weren't successful, right? Stuff that you thought was going to work great, but that really didn't pan out.
I'd like to hear more about raffles and how you get that message across quickly. Like, here's a raffle, you'll win this, but your money goes to that. How do you get that quickly so people?
We tied it to our live stream, and we also put it on the Stamford website and anywhere else. And it was if you donated $20 or more by a certain date, and that date was 5 days after the live stream, you would be entered in the raffle. And that's how we did it.
And what was your giveaway?
I was going to say, the other thing is you have to have good prizes.
Yeah.
So we got very easily and quickly gift cards from Trader Joe's. And we got gift cards from Whole Foods, like one phone call, and they were more than happy to give us gift cards.
And then we gave two kits, two starter kits and a t-shirt. That was it. And it drove a lot of donations, and people were so happy when they won. It was fun.
Pam, not to call you out, but I know that you guys did a raffle that was pretty successful and that you tied it into the crowdfunding campaign as well. So if you're free, wondering if you could speak to that.
Had to unmute, sorry.
No.
I'm on my phone for my voice, so that's why my picture's not yellow highlighted. Anyway, so yeah, I live in the town of Cheshire, and I'm on a coalition for sustainable Cheshire that was established a year ago. So we registered for Sustainable CT, and we're sending points, paperwork over for points and all that. And the coalition is really excited about having a backyard composter program. We wanted to be able to give them out. So the way that we worked this out is that we set up, people had to donate to the, they donated to the site. We set it out through social media and we got the word out there. So people that donated were able to get a raffle ticket. So if you donated $25, you got one raffle ticket. If you donated 50, you got 2 raffle tickets. If you just wanted to be, submit to be in the raffle, you were able to do that. So people just didn't donate at all because we wanted to get out to the whole community. We wanted everybody to have a chance to get a composter, no matter whether you had, whether you had any cash or not. And so I think actually if you donated, it didn't really matter how much you donated, you got one raffle ticket or nothing, you have to donate nothing. So anyway, it worked out really well. We were able to get, in the end, because the money was doubled and all of that, we were able to give out 82 composters, and we were able to give out 20 to community gardens in the area. So everybody that actually donated and everybody that asked, just put in for the raffle won. So talk about people being excited about winning. It was comical. I mean, people were like literally jumping up and down, and it was in the rain. The collection, the pickup day was in the rain, and it got dark too, because it was like, when it got dark at 5 o'clock. So we're out there in the rain, in the dark, giving out the 82 composters, and actually a little training video too. We had a 5-minute training video right on site with the vendor, and it was perfect because 5 minutes. It was all like a nice little, summarized video to get them started. And we had further education, of course, and materials, and we had webinars that we gave out to the group, and for educational purposes. But it was really fun because people were really so happy, and some people were like had not composted before. So like, okay, are you going to tell me, what do I do with this now? Okay, here's your 5-minute video. Here's the materials. This is how you do it. And of course, there's a lot of resources for them to be able to, and people to contact and if they have more questions, and because it's a process, a learning process too. But it was great. It was great because everybody we were able to give one to everybody, and then we gave it out to local churches, and there's churches in town, and there was a list of community gardens and churches that we gave them out to. So yeah, it was fun.
Great, thank you, Pam.
Did I forget or miss anything, Abe?
No, I think you covered it. That's great.
Okay.
Caryn, I see that you've got your hand up.
Yes, so good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Caryn Jenkins with the New Haven Coalition for Active Transportation. I first want to thank Abe and Cameron for their great help. Our campaign launched during this phone call, I think, and we raised $125 already. So that's kind of why I turned off my video, because I was looking at our page. But I'm really interested in the raffle. So I have 2 questions. One, are there no legal sanctions in the state or legal requirements for holding a raffle? I know when I lived in New Jersey, you couldn't just hold a raffle, you had to get permission. So that's the first thing. And secondly, when did you announce the winners? Was that a public announcement, an email? How did people know that they won the raffle?
So we contacted them because we had their emails, because they had, they had to give us their email in order to ask to be in the raffle or when they donated. And I'm trying to remember the legal, the state. There was a reason why, because I think people weren't paying. We didn't have to worry about the state raffle laws. And I don't remember. Do you remember the details on that, Abe? Because I cannot think about how there was a reason why we didn't have to do it. We didn't have to worry about it.
I remember that we talked about it a lot and looking up different things online on like the IRS charitable giving. I think if so, don't hold me, or I refuse to be held to this. But
because I'm trying to remember too.
Was that right? Because people weren't buying something, right? They were making a donation to the crowdfunding campaign, and that entered them into a raffle. Then it was simply a giveaway, right? We talked a lot about that because for our purposes too, a donation needs to be a donation, right? Someone can't be buying something. So if you're receiving a composter that has a $60 value and you donate $60 and there's a guarantee that you're going to receive that composter, you bought a composter, you didn't donate, right? So what we were very conscious to do for that campaign was to say, you donate, that enters you into the raffle. Maybe donating more gets you more tickets, right? But there's no guarantee that you're going to receive something. So it happened to work out because of the number of donors and the money raised. Everyone was able to, but there was no guarantee that folks who donated would receive it. So it was still a charitable contribution.
Yeah, because if I remember right, we didn't have to go through the town of Cheshire for some application. And I'm thinking about this more, and I'm trying to see if I can find it in my emails. And I went back and forth for a while. The person was new too in the position, so she had to go to several other people, and then she just came back to me and just said, no, this is not necessary, because it had to do with, I think, like you said, they're not paying for anything,
So there was no public announcement of the winners. That's what I was wondering. I mean, I know I can contact people individually or the group, but there was no public announcement or website or email that said these are the winners of the raffle.
We decided not to because of privacy issues.
Yeah.
But if people insisted to know, we would have, provided something, but we thought privacy was too important. So we contacted by email also.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think for the community garden and the churches and all that, we did, there was publicity about that and saying, hey, yes, we were able to buy 82 composters with our fundraising campaign, and we were able to donate 20 composters locally. So, there was that as well. So, but we didn't list the names, no. We gave it to Patronicity and to Abe, but that was all for our fundraiser. Yeah, I'm still trying to see if I can find that email chain, but it was.
So Pam, if you find it, I can look through too, and then Caryn, we can send you separately whatever we dig up. We did look into this a lot. So Patronicity, the raffle is one thing, but then through Patronicity, right, there are those giving levels where people can you can set up rewards as well through there. So one thing is to actually hold an official raffle. Another option is to just tie the rewards directly into the giving levels. So if there's something that you have that you can give away, you set, let's say you have 25 t-shirts or something at X giving level, you can choose the number of rewards that people can claim for that, so that there's only 25. And then as folks donate to it, I mean, it is first come, first serve in that case, right? When it runs out, but it incentivizes donations. And realistically, for charitable giving purposes, not that this ends up being your responsibility, but the folks who made the donation, if they claim it, they should deduct the value of the reward, basically. But that's on the donor, not on the group leading the project. And I think those giving levels on Patronicity site are a really good way of incentivizing people to donate when there is a hard reward, something tangible, actually.
That's right. That was the other thing. We were able to give a t-shirt out to everybody too. We had t-shirts as a prize. I'm telling you, people were so excited. They had a t-shirt, they had for composter, they had their composter pail for their kitchen. I mean, you would have thought we were giving them, they won the lotto, It was awesome. It was awesome. And then they had a little, educational session right there. So it was really good. And, it's nice, and Abe, you said it, and it's set up this way to get the community involved. It's nice, you feel like you're making a difference, and you feel like, and people feel like they're making a difference, and they're happy to be part of the donating. They're happy to be receiving a composter for free, and that they're going to be doing something that's helping, with food waste diversion and the environment. So yeah, it's good.
Caryn, I think your hand, you didn't just re-raise your hand, right? I just want to make sure.
It was a mistake.
Okay.
This can't. Sorry. Thank you so much for the answers. It's really helpful. So I think we're raffle mid-campaign. Thank you so much.
If I could speak?
Yeah, of course, Mary. Sorry, I have a cat that's causing mayhem on my keyboard.
Oh, I have one of those too.
Yeah.
I'm Mary Lucilla with the town of Thomaston. I'm with the Seth Thomas Park Revitalization Program. We successfully were able to raise funds over the past year with NEET doing a survey on our site, as well as to have a master plan put together for revitalization of a very small 0.6 acre park in our town. We're also a very small community, and finding people wanting to just give was a little difficult to raise the funds, but we were successful. not with a lot of businesses, but some. And I found it interesting listening to you, Joe, to ask a question about how you said the high school students were involved in internships and being able to become very active. I am a big proponent of pay it forward, be very proud of where you come from. And I want high school students involved in our program. Hopefully they will be, but with incentives. So did you say that you found somehow a way the town sponsored them? And could you elaborate a little bit about that, Joe?
Okay, so the high school here in Oxford was built in 2007. And it's situated in about 750 acres of open space property. There's an additional like 450 that's around it as well. So there's almost like 1,100 acres on the southwestern corner of the town. We're close to the Housatonic. You can actually see the Housatonic from the property.
Mhm.
And with that, when we started the school, I started a club first. The club was the Youth Conservation Corps because there was no one to maintain the trails or actually even build trails. There was only about a mile worth of trail when we first opened the school. And then I worked collaboratively with the town to say, you know, we have basically a labor force here that's interested and wants to do good service work. But I said, how much better would it be that if we could get them a job? Because Oxford is only about 13,000 people. So we're like a mid-sized small town, I guess you could say. And the kids can't find work. And so those kids that wanted to be able to find work, but also build their resume because they are donating community service time first. And the other important thing was that there was no limitation based on family income. It was open to basically students committing the service hours. Because previously I had done work in other communities where it was based on income and stuff like that before kids could qualify. So here it was pretty much wide open and it kind of evolved. So we had all the groundwork set before we did this huge fundraiser for like 10 years. So we pretty much had a well-oiled machine. So it was just like, so that really helped. I don't know if I could have done a fundraiser and then try to do all the back work. Having all that other stuff in place really helps because, and we're a known entity. So that really helped on that. So I don't know if that answers your question well enough.
Well, did the town then agree because you already had the groundwork done, as you say? And in my town, it's also 7,600 people, I believe it's small, but they have a program where every student is required to have 20 hours of community service per year, I believe. And so, you know, whether they're doing it, you know, for, you know, packing groceries, helping little old ladies across the street, I don't know how they're accumulating these hours, but I'd love to tap into that. But for them to be able to have a resource for paying jobs in the future, you know, I don't know how much our town would be able to participate in something unless they had a specific, or we titled a specific program for them to get into in the school, and then be able to say from that, you can then become an intern or, you know, have other opportunities.
Right. So the kids actually become town employees. So they are town employees. They have to be a minimum age of 15 and to become paid. And on top of that, the town gives a minimal amount. We're very, how could I put it politely, fiscally conservative, and we squeeze the blood out of stones. And so they give $12,000 a year for the maintenance of, you know, 800 acres. If you know anything about maintenance of trails, they're labor intensive, and with state minimum wages being mandatorily going up, the town hasn't really kept up on inflation, needless to say. So we've done a lot of grant writing, and that's part of the reason why we also approached Sustainable Connecticut and seeing this would be a good opportunity because we've had a lot of out-of-town users. And that's why I wanted to emphasize that we had so many people from out of town donate in those face-to-face conversations. Like I have like an example of like where we put like QR codes and stuff like that so people could scan and link. This is actually a membership drive for the local mountain bike club for those riders that come that wanted to help, but I didn't have information. That was another thing that came out of this, a desire to help more. But I'm the representative of the town. So I'm like, you need to go to the nonprofit group that we partner with so you can, you know, get other adults as well. So
we have a very fortunate opportunity with the Greenway up in northwestern Connecticut being probably mapped right alongside of our park as it needs to they have private properties or whatever, they can't have it go along the Naugatuck River, which runs right through my town. So they're instead channeling people up into the center of town and then back down, and they have to walk right by my park. So I think maybe tapping into the town plus into the Greenway might be two places where the kids could end up saying, we're going to agree to participate in these conservation and, you know, maybe the park project, and then have an income during the school year or the summer that the town, or maybe, I don't know if it could be at the state level with the Greenway, could pay them. All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So I know we're approaching time here. So there's one person who leads, or at least supports, tons of crowdfunding campaigns on here. Cameron, I don't know if you have any thoughts just about other things you've seen either through the Sustainable CT projects or the other ones that Patronicity has worked on. I mean, obviously, you guys support hundreds, thousands of projects. So if you have any interesting info to share, I'm sure it's more useful than me, who has actually never led a crowdfunding campaign, right? Like, that's one of the interesting things. I've been on the margins of all of these campaigns that you guys have been doing, but at Sustainable CT, we're not doing it, right? It's always easy for us to say, sure, we'll give you a matching grant, go ahead and do this crowdfunding campaign, but we don't then have to go out there and actually engage with residents and friends and families and raise that money. So Cameron, I don't know, do you have any thoughts? Anything that has been sort of across the board always successful?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like something that's been really cool about this is that each project, I feel like we always hop on and we're able to brainstorm strategies that are specific to each project in town, which has been really cool. And this is a little bit of a cop out, but I was going to chime in earlier because I had a really great conversation with Felicia right after her campaign about the ways that she was able to engage her donor network. And honestly, that is one of the conversations that stuck out to me the most. And I don't know, I don't want to put you on the spot, Felicia, but I don't know if you want to speak to that a little bit, because that was something that I really wanted to make sure was shared in this space, because I felt like you did such a wonderful job. Oh, I think you're muted.
All right, thought I unmuted. Okay, one of the things that I've noticed is most people are very uncomfortable asking other people for money. And, you know, I completely understand it. And that is usually the biggest hurdle to get over. So the last project, we've done 2 crowdfunding projects in our town. The last one, we made a goal where every board member, this was being done by our housing trust. We were raising money to drill a well for some affordable housing we're building. So every board member agreed to send out this solicitation that we made to 10 people, and they all did it. Everybody made a donation themselves, and everybody did 10 requests to friends or family. And then they just let it go. So, you know, 24 hours later, we had a couple, and then it just completely died. And nobody was really comfortable doing it again. So, you know, I had to poke a little bit. And, you know, first I reached out to my people I had been sending them out, and I gave second, you know, requests. And a couple of people told me, oh, thanks for reminding me. So I shared that with the group, that I haven't been getting any hostile responses from, you know, sending a second or even a third reminder, and that people actually thanked me. So then, you know, everybody did. The donation started rolling again. And then I noticed that there were 2 people on the board who really got invigorated by it. It was like the more that their contacts started donating money, they started asking other people. And then there was this one, and he's the most mature gentleman on our group. And he was very adverse to asking for money in the beginning. He became our like super fundraiser, and even secured a $1,000 donation from an individual who used to live in our town and moved away, but he knew that this guy had a particular passion for wanting to support affordable housing. So you just never know where it goes. Sometimes pushing a little bit, you know, is good for the people you're working with. It helps to empower them and expand their, you know, abilities. And it worked out very well. We didn't have any complaints about being too aggressive fundraisers or anything. And at the end of the day, we exceeded our fundraising goal. You know, everybody felt very rewarded. I think it elevated their confidence as far as fundraising a lot.
Well, just adding on to that too, I think the top thing that I learned in fundraising school, they told us on like the very beginning, is the number one reason that people do not give is that they are not asked. So I feel like a lot of the people I've had conversations with in this room, it's just been about making sure that you are making those personal asks, and that will apply across the board. Because like, you know, like Abe was saying earlier, social media is only going to take you so far, and just making sure you're really engaging. And then also inspiring people to go out and, you know, sell your story and, you know, bring other people in. So I don't know. I think that's amazing.
So one of the things that I think sort of bears out across the board too is, and this depends, right? Again, it's an easy one to say, but when there's a group, so like you were just talking about, Felicia, right? That it wasn't just 1 or 2 or 3 people who were doing this, because we all have limited networks. I mean, some folks might be dynamo fundraisers and will be successful no matter what. But for most folks, it's new. You have a limited network, a limited ability to connect with people. Folks have limited resources to donate. So I think sort of anecdotally, a lot of the times what we've heard too is that broadening your base, bringing more people in before you launch the fundraiser who become part of the team, it just means that, like you said, Felicia, that it expands out. So if there's 10 people, that's 10 people's networks that they're then spreading it out to. And then those people spread it out as well. I think one of the projects in New Haven that brought in around 100 donors, maybe a bit more than that actually, we kept reaching out to them because it happened so fast that they raised these donations. And we kept asking, hey, what are you guys doing? You know, what's the innovative fundraising thing? And they just said, it's nothing. They said, we haven't asked for money before. So this is the first time that we've reached out to our networks to ask for money for something. Obviously, they'd built a lot of goodwill for providing a resourcing community, but not asking for financial support from folks. But then they just said, we built a big fundraising team and we got everybody to commit to actually reaching out to their networks to ask for money. So I think a lot of the time it's just that, right? It's connecting with as many people as you can and having a lot of people on your team who are willing to get out there and connect with people so that it doesn't just fall to you. It's interesting each time hearing like, it's not rocket science. It really is just, it's engaging people and touching as many folks as possible. Felicia, it looks like you had something you wanted.
I was just gonna add, because you reminded me, I think one of the things that the crowdfunding makes very comfortable is people can donate $10. And it really makes it seem more like being part of the solution, that, you know, it doesn't matter if you're donating $10 or $1,000 or somewhere in between, that we're all coming together to, you know, drill a well for affordable housing, or to, you know, put some trees in the recreation center, or to do a food scrap recycling, that it really is about the community. And I think that momentum that happens, you know, first you get your first 10 donations, and then 25, and then 50, and that also makes people bolder, right? Once you hit a certain, whatever that threshold is for them. So yeah, it does build, but it's very nice that everybody feels included.
I think that's one of the things. And by the way, I'm aware that we're at 2:01 and that we're booked until 2. I'm happy to stay on if other folks want to, but don't feel any pressure to stay on if you got places to be.
I just
Go ahead.
So as far as fundraising, my 2 experiences I can think of, one more than that. But I find that when you're part of a school system, like an elementary school, say, especially, it seems that it's easier to raise that money. You know, can you still see me? Because I just lost you on my screen.
Yeah,
but anyhow, so yeah, it's easier to because you have that community going already, and they're already getting together for lots of different reasons at the elementary school. So I think it's a lot easier then to raise money. The other thing I found too, and it's not, and I guess it could be done with this kind of fundraising effort too. You don't want to handle cash, but we have a couple of places in town like Bagelicious, Stop and Shop. I'll use Bagelicious as an example. And the kids would always stand out there like around the holidays, you know, for when it's a Christmas time and they're raising money for a needy family or something like that. And standing there, and people, I mean, because I was at the table one year with my kids for that, people just were so generous. I mean, they would come take out their wallet, hand you whatever singles they have, or a 5 or a 10. Some woman came out stressed completely after she made the order. The tables we were closing up. And she came out with money because she had to go in and get change or something. And she was panicked. She's like, she still wanted to give the money. And I'm like, nope, you're good. I could take it. I'll run in now. My daughter's getting the gift card now inside and you'll be all set. So people want to make a difference. And like you said, $5-10 even, like most people can give $5 or $10. It makes them feel really good. You know, I know people that have little money and will pay for somebody's coffee in front of them in line or behind them because it, you know, it makes them feel good. And when you're part of a bigger project like this, it's really amazing for them. Yeah. So that's my 2 cents.
Thanks, Pam. I think that's one of the things. I was actually looking through a list of all the 4,850 donations today to sort of parse out what the dollar amounts have been. The vast majority are under $100, right? Now, 100 is a lot larger than $5 or $10, but even so, that's a level at which lots of folks can give. So it really isn't that these campaigns, and we have campaigns where people are raising $20,000, more than that, right? And the median donation has stayed steady at $50 throughout the 2 rounds, the year and a half that we've been doing this program. $50 is the median donation. So these projects, they're really not getting funded by, predominantly anyways, by big grants and things like that. I mean, it's encouraging lots of people to contribute, and $50 from 100 people adds up to a pretty sizable chunk of money. So it's been really fun to see that it stays steady with that. I mean, it's manageable donations to these projects. And I think that's part of it, is that people feel like they can actually make a difference, right? Like you guys said, they can donate something small, but they're a part of it. And then they can see it on the crowdfunding page, actually going towards that goal and moving towards it. Well, cool. Unless anyone has anything else, we're 2:05. It's St. Patrick's Day. I don't know what people have planned for that, but if you got car bombs waiting or maybe something a little less aggressive, feel free to get to it. I will send a link to this recording out to everybody that joined today. And then if you have questions, if you want to connect with folks, learn about projects, ask about crowdfunding or anything. So if people gave their emails here, obviously feel free to contact them or just reach out to me and I'll make connections. I mean, the whole point of this is bringing people together. And like somebody said before, making sure that we're not all starting from scratch and doing something new if somebody else has already done it. So feel free to reach out to me and I'm happy to put you in touch with anyone. And thank you guys for joining today.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, everyone.